Yeah, so it's based around this idea of interconnectedness, and this image of Indra's net is like this image we see on the left of the shrine. If you imagine that those are jewels, that's actually a spider's web with little beads of dew on it. But it's a very good representation of this idea of Indra's net, which is jewels, and each of those jewels, every other jewel is reflected. So it acts as an image of interconnectedness. So the light coming from one jewel shines into another jewel, and it carries the image of the first jewel with it, and that reflects and hits another jewel, and hits another jewel, and hits another jewel, and these jewels go out through the infinity of space. Another image that might work is if you thought of those as tiny mirrors that reflected everything, that all the light came into it. And talking last week about the interconnectedness of things and how everything is, in a sense, completely open. This is part of the Buddha's vision, and that complete openness means that everything potentially is interlinked, or not potentially, is interlinked with everything else. And we see this in our own lives. We are constantly being influenced by the things that are around us, sometimes more than we think. We're influenced by our bodies, we're influenced by our minds, we're influenced by the culture that we're in. And there's this constant interconnection between us as people as well. We're constantly interconnected with each other, constantly feeding off of each other, in a sense. A lot of us are in study groups. One of the things I really like is the mitra study groups that we have. And last night we had a great mitra study group. Nuri was there, and then we were just firing these ideas, off of each other. And somebody at the end of the night said, might have been you, Nuri, actually, about how good it is, to have more than sort of one mind, one brain there talking, because you can't necessarily get very far when you try to work these things out by yourself. So we'll do this visualization. So visualization, if you've not done it before, is a form of meditation practice that's used within the Buddhist tradition. Visualizations always start with the blue sky. And we visualize, visualizing, let's think a bit about that. It's the mind's eye. We see in the mind's eye. It's like imagining. We can imagine all sorts of things. That faculty of imagination is very powerful. Partly because it can carry with it not just the sort of mental part of our being, but also carries the emotion and spiritual part of our being. If you're not very good at sort of seeing things, don't worry. Sometimes the word visualization is a bit deceptive, because really it's as much about the feel of what is there as the actual seeing of it. But we start with a blue sky, and then we're going to imagine these jewels coming out of the blue sky. The reason we start with the blue sky, well, that's representative. It's symbolic of that openness that we were talking about, the complete openness. Sometimes equated with this word shunyata in Buddhism, which sometimes is translated as emptiness. There was a translator of the sutras, the Prajnaparamita sutras, which our heart sutra in the puja comes from, my man called Herbert Gunther, and he translated the term shunyata as the open dimension of being, and I really, really like that, because I think that's much more sort of positive sounding than emptiness, the open dimension of being. And that's what the blue sky is. Out of the blue sky, anything, as it were, can and does arise. You could say the whole phenomenal universe manifests out of that blue sky, talking in those sort of symbolic terms. So we're going to visualize the blue sky. going to feel what it's like to be in the blue sky. Then out of the blue sky are going to emerge these jewels, lots of jewels here on the shrine. And then we're going to go from there. We're going to see within each of those jewels all the other jewels reflected. Okay. So if you want to set yourself up for meditation, we'll meditate for about 25 minutes or so. Oh, ventilation. Would you mind opening the window? Thanks, Brian. So, let's see how you get on. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. It's to be enjoyed. So we'll just spend a couple of minutes putting ourselves into meditation. So I'm sure you're all already aware. Being aware of the body is a great way to start meditation. Aware of our posture, making any adjustments to get comfortable. Feeling the contact with the ground, the earth, through the cushions or chair or whatever you're sitting on. Feeling ourselves supported by the earth. Sense of groundedness. And the other quality of the posture is a sense of alertness that comes from the spine being upright. Once we've got a stable posture, just let go of the body. So relaxation is an important aspect of meditation. Body is able to relax. This helps the mind to relax. Just give up whole body to gravity. So just using enough muscles to keep us upright, and the posture grounded and stable, and then we can just let go. Totally relaxed. If there is any tension in the body, gently being aware of that, trying to let go through the tension, let the shoulders drop, let the jaw be relaxed, the eyes soft. So soft, relaxed, and yet alive and alert. Feeling the body's energy, sense of aliveness. What an amazing thing to be alive. So imagine summer's day, lying on the grass. It's warm, the sun is shining. Above you is a deep, clear blue sky. You stare up into that blue sky. Imagine yourself floating up from the ground to the blue sky. You can remember some of the feel of what it's like to have the blue sky above. And you can lose yourself in it. Floating in the blue sky. It's blue sky in front of you, blue sky behind, above, below. And it's like you can travel in any direction, completely unhindered. Blue sky is completely open, without obstructions. It's alive. At the same time, it's very peaceful. As you sit there floating in this blue sky, notice glimmering, little points of light. As they appear in front of you, like glitter in the sky. Notice they're also behind, above, below. Little stars or points of light. Are emerging out of the blue sky, as if out of nothing. As you look more closely, start to become larger. And you can see that each one is a jewel, like a diamond. Very clear and sparkling. And the sparkling of those jewels are rays of light pouring out of each jewel in all directions. These rays of light carry an image of the jewel. When rays of light from one jewel to another jewel, the image of that first jewel is reflected in the second jewel. Go to the second jewel, we can see an image of the first jewel within it. if we go from that second jewel, following its rays of light, and it hits the third jewel. And in that third jewel, you can see reflected the image of the second jewel, and also the image of the first jewel. And the rays of light from the third jewel are also reflected back to the first and second jewels. We look at the first and second jewels, we see the images of the third jewel within them. Going to other jewels, you notice more and more jewels are reflected within that jewel. And enter into the jewel and see more and more all the jewels in space reflected there. The first jewel, the second jewel, the third jewel, and so on, all appearing in every jewel we go to. It's as if within the jewel there are 1,000 million tiny mirrors that reflect every other single jewel. And through the rays of light, actually all of the jewels in space are connected to each other. Begin to see and realize that actually the light that is coming from any single jewel is really just the light reflected from all the other jewels, passing through, shining out of that jewel. And the light of the first jewel is really only made up from the light of all these other jewels. If we travel forwards through the blue sky to where other jewels are, we see the same thing happen. And each jewel has captured the image of all the other jewels and then reflected as light into all the jewels around it. In fact, into all the jewels of the vast open space. The light is completely unobstructed. It goes everywhere, connects with every jewel, reflects every jewel. Forwards through the blue sky, backwards through the blue sky, above, below. An infinite net of jewels, all connected together through this reflecting light. And then we also notice that the jewels are non-different from the blue sky out of which they emerged. The sky and the jewels are really the same nature, the same being. Just as the vast blue sky is empty, each of the jewels is empty. Completely open. There, and non-different from the blue sky. Each jewel distinct and yet completely interwoven with all the other jewels. Begin to notice that the jewels start to fade back into the blue sky. Become blue sky again. And we're left in the clear blue sky, expanding in all directions. And then the clear blue sky itself begins to fade. Back upon the earth. Back in the Buddhist center. Okay, so we'll have a tea break for 20 minutes. I've actually have this rather Chinese-looking Buddha which is on the shrine. So the puja we're going to do is called, well, it's actually the 10 vows of a figure called Samantabhadra. So Samantabhadra means something like universal good or universal benevolence. It's quite encouraging, isn't it? And that's the figure of Samantabhadra, the one in the middle, just above the book there. So at the end of towards the end of this entire large volume, this figure of Samantabhadra appears, and the last part of the Avatamsaka Sutra is called the Gandavyuha, called the entry into the realm of reality, and it follows the progress of this young man called Sudana. And he's in this picture, the small white frame down here. You can see him there talking to the Bodhisattva Manjushri, who sends him to see Maitreya, another Buddha. Maitreya is the Buddha of the future, and Maitreya shows Sudana Varochana's tower. And Varochana's tower is this huge tower that sits in the park of birth and death. And inside of Varochana's tower is the entire cosmos. So yes, Sudana goes on this journey. He sees many teachers. I think I was saying this last week. He sees many teachers. In fact, about 50 teachers, all sorts of people, including the Buddha's wife. He goes to visit one point, and the Buddha's mother, and a prostitute who's also a bodhisattva. I don't know how that works. Maybe she was a prostitute and became a bodhisattva. The sea captain, and he learns from all these different teachers. I think it's very interesting that Sudana, who is a lay person like us, he's not a monk, learns from all these different people, all these different characters, and it's a bit like life. Really. Life is a learning, isn't it? And we learn from each other, and we learn from all the different people we meet in our lives. Sudana's good fortune is that I think all of those people are awakened beings. But who knows? And yes, in the end, he goes to see Manjushri, who's the Bodhisattva of wisdom. And Manjushri sent him to see Maitreya. And Maitreya takes him to Varochana's tower. And Varochana is a figure that appears in Buddhist iconography. Varochana means the illuminator, and he's often seen at the center of mandalas. So mandalas are, you might have come across them already. The images, they often have walls to them, and inside the mandala, sit figures like Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So they're symbolic of, they can be symbolic of many things, but they're symbolic of reality, symbols of reality. So Varochana is often seen sitting at the center of this, and it's said the wisdom of Varochana carries the wisdom of all the Buddhas, and he's white. His color is white, a bit like the figure on the shrine. Varochana actually appears in that picture on the far side. So he's the figure on the right in that far picture. And next to him, holding Varochana's tower, is the Bodhisattva Manjushri, the Bodhisattva of wisdom. And then also on the shrine, you have a figure that's on the right there, a smaller white frame. That's Fa Sang. So Fa Sang was, last week I was giving a talk, and a lot of that talk was coming out of the teachings of Fa Sang, who was very, very into the Avatamsaka Sutra. And he really brought out this idea of interconnectedness and interpenetration. Okay, so I say it's based upon the vows of Samantabhadra that appear at the end of the sutta. So don't worry, we're not going to be, as it were, taking the vows. I'm not going to kind of get you to take a bunch of vows that save all sentient beings. We're just reciting the vows that Samantabhadra takes. It'll actually be a little bit familiar. I'm sure all of you've probably done a sevenfold puja. It takes a very similar form to the sevenfold puja. So the first vow, for instance, is homage, which is a bit like we have at the beginning of the sevenfold puja. We have worship, and then you have praise, and you have offerings, repentance and rejoicing, a bit like rejoicing in merits, and you have a request for the teachings, which is like entreaty and supplication in the puja. And then you have a part, the vow 8, which is called to follow the teachings, which is very much like the going for refuge section that we have in the puja. So there, Samantabhadra states what he's going to do about practicing the Dharma, as it were. And then in the end, we have a vow 9, which is to accommodate and benefit all living beings, which is a bit like, well, it's partly like the transference of merits. And then at the very end, vow 10 is to transform merits and virtue to the benefit of all beings. A little bit longer than the normal puja. I don't know if we've got enough time. And we're going to have a mantra in it as well, which is going to be the Samantabhadra mantra. Om Samantabhadra Maha Metta. Maha means great in Sanskrit. Metta. Metta means metta, isn't it? Metta Bhava. And Taranita is going to give us a reading as well. And I think I'm going to say in the usual place, but the usual place is not quite the usual place here. Yes, so request for teaching and request to remain. So that's after vow 6 and 7. Yeah. And that's going to be giving us a story from the Sutra, taking us into Suda's journey into Orachin's tower and what he sees there. Okay, all set. So we do it in call and response. If it doesn't make sense, don't worry. Mahayana Sutras are not meant to make sense. I'm pretty sure for the ones that I've read. Just have to let it kind of wash over you. Sankaracharya said that they're more like science fiction than anything. So, let's go on a sci-fi journey. It's gone because it sounds more Chinese. Puja of the 10 vows of Samantabhadra from the Avatamsaka Sutra. Vow 1, homage. As many Buddhas as there are, as many Buddhas as there may be in any world.
As many Buddhas as there may be in any world.
Throughout the 10 directions, throughout past, present, and future.
Throughout the 10 directions, throughout the past, present, and future.
I honour them all without exception.
I honour them all without exception.
Pure in body, speech, and mind.
Pure in body, speech, and mind.
With as many bodies as atoms in all lands.
With as many bodies as atoms in all lands.
I bow to all Buddhas.
I bow to all Buddhas.
With a mind directed to all Buddhas.
With a mind directed to all Buddhas.
By the power of the vow of the practice of good.
By the power of the vow of the practice of good.
In a single atom, Buddhas as many as atoms.
In a single atom, Buddhas as many as atoms.
Sit in the midst of enlightening beings.
Sit in the midst of enlightening beings.
So it is of all things in the cosmos.
So it is that all things in the cosmos.
I realize all are filled with Buddhas.
I realize all are filled with Buddhas.
Om Samantabhadra Mahameta. 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 Please feel free to make offerings. Om Samantabhadra Mahameta. 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 Om Samantabhadra Mahameta Om. 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 Vow 2 and 3, praise and offerings. I praise all the Buddhas therein.
I praise all the Buddhas therein.
Expounding in all languages.
Expounding in all languages.
The qualities of all Buddhas.
The qualities of all Buddhas.
With endless oceans of manifestation.
With endless oceans of manifestations.
With the finest flowers and garlands.
With the finest flowers and garlands.
Musical instruments, perfumes, and parasols.
Musical instruments, perfumes, and parasols.
The finest lamps and incenses.
The finest lamps and incenses.
I make offerings to those Buddhas.
I make offerings to those Buddhas.
With the finest cloths, fragrances.
The finest cloths, fragrances.
And mountainous baskets of aromatic powders.
And mountainous baskets of aromatic powders.
With the finest of all kinds of adornments.
With the finest of all kinds of adornments.
I make offerings to those Buddhas.
I make offerings to those Buddhas.
Whatever be the best of offerings.
Whatever be the best of offerings.
I produce them for all Buddhas.
I produce them for all Buddhas.
By the power of devotion to the practice of good.
By the power of devotion to the practice of good.
I honor and serve all Buddhas.
I honor and serve all Buddhas.
Vow 4 and 5, repentance and rejoicing. Whatever evil I may commit,
whatever evil I may commit,
under the sway of passion, hatred, or folly,
under the sway of passion, hatred, or folly,
bodily, verbally, or mentally,
bodily, verbally, or mentally,
I confess it all.
I confess it all.
And whatever the virtue of beings everywhere,
And whatever the virtue of beings everywhere,
hearers, saints, self-conquerors,
heroes, saints, self-conquerors,
enlightening beings and Buddhas,
enlightening beings and Buddhas,
in all that I do rejoice.
in all that I do rejoice.
May those engaged in the ways of transcendence
May those engaged in the ways of transcendence
not stray from enlightenment,
not stray from enlightenment,
and may all evils to be inhibited
and may all evils to be inhibited
be thoroughly extinguished.
be thoroughly extinguished.
May the Buddhas of the past be honored,
May the Buddhas of the past be honored,
as well as those now in the worlds of the 10 directions,
as well as those now in the world of the 10 directions,
and may those of the future be at ease,
and may those of the future be at ease,
filled with joy, having realized enlightenment.
filled with joy, having realized enlightenment.
May all the lands of the 10 directions
May all the lands of the 10 directions
be purified, supreme, and filled
be purified, supreme, and filled
with Buddhas and enlightening beings
with Buddhas and enlightened beings
at the tree of enlightenment.
at the tree of enlightenment.
May all beings in the 10 directions
May all beings in the 10 directions
be happy and well.
be happy and well.
May all beings' righteous aim be successful.
May all beings' righteous aim be successful.
May their hope be realized.
May their hope be realized.
Vows 6 and 7. Request for teaching and request to remain. And all the lamps of the worlds in the 10 directions,
And to all the lamps of the worlds in the 10 directions,
who have realized enlightenment and attained non-obstruction,
who have realized enlightenment and attained non-obstruction,
I seek as guides,
I seek as guides,
that they may return
that they may return
the supreme wheel of teaching.
the supreme will of teaching.
And those who wish to manifest extinction,
Those who wish to manifest extinction,
I petition respectfully to remain.
I petition respectfully to remain,
For eons, as many as atoms in the land,
for eons as many as atoms in the land,
for the welfare and happiness of all beings.
for the welfare and happiness of all beings.
Then Sudana went to the city of Sumanamukha, and there he called on the boy, Sri Sambhava, and the girl, Srimati, paying his respects to them. He said, "Noble ones, I have set my mind on supreme, perfect enlightenment, but I do not know how an enlightening being is to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. I hear you give enlightening beings instruction, so please tell me how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings." Then the boy and the girl said to him, "Go south to a place called Samudra Kacha. There is a park called Great Array there, wherein there is a great tower called Chamber of Adornments of Virachana. which has been produced by the maturation of roots of goodness of enlightening beings, originating from the thoughts of enlightening beings, arisen from the vows of enlightening beings, based on the masteries of enlightening beings, created by the power of mystic knowledge of enlightening beings, made of the skill in means of enlightening beings, completed by the power of virtue and knowledge of enlightening beings, showing enlightening beings great compassionate guidance of sentient beings, built of arrays of spiritual powers of enlightening beings, adorned by the states of inconceivable liberation of enlightening beings. There, an enlightening being, a great man named Maitreya, lives for the purpose of benefiting the people, to develop the roots of goodness, of beings according to their states, to show how to enter this liberation. Go to Maitreya and ask how an enlightening being is to seek the practices of enlightening beings. Then Sudana, his mind enriched by the instructions of spiritual benefactors, went to the region of Samudra. And Sudana, his mind pursuing such thoughts of respect, with the eye of knowledge intent upon the ground of the realm of such infinite knowledge, prostrated himself in front of the door of the great tower, chamber of the adornments of Varochana, the illuminator. Then Sudana spoke these verses. Here is the compassionate, pure-minded Maitreya, radiant with love, striving for the good of the world. At the stage of coronation, heir of the Buddhas, he dwells in contemplation of the enlightened realm. This is the realm of great knowledge, of the illustrious offspring of Buddhas secure in liberation. This is the abode of those unrivaled ones who travel the realm of reality without attachment. This is the abode of those risen from the power of discipline, generosity, patience, and vigor, who have reached perfection of the power of mystic knowledge by meditations, who are firm in wisdom, technique, resolve, and power, who have reached the goal of the great vehicle. This is the abode of those of unobstructed intellect and broad mind, enjoying the realm of space, free from dependence, penetrating all times, free from obstruction, clearly perceiving all being and becoming. Those who understand the principle of non-origination of all things realize the nature of things as of the essence of space. They do not rest on anything, like a bird in the sky. This is the abode of those who are perfect in knowledge. Those who, knowing the nature of passion, hatred, and delusion as unreal, evolving from thoughts, go to dispassion, free from conception. This is their abode, who have realized peace and tranquility. Investigating the doors of liberation, the truths, their meanings, the path, the clusters, the senses, beings, and relativity, those who do not become attached to quiescence, who have wisdom and skill and means, this is their abode. This is the abode of those who have entered the realm of unobstructed knowledge, in whom vain imaginings and false thoughts of lands and beings have ceased, who have abandoned the notion of self-existence of things, do not grasp things, and are filled with peace. Those who traverse this cosmos, unattached and unhindered, roam free of existence, like the wind in the sky, free from all dependence, acting independently. This is their abode, those of independent wisdom. This is the abode of the compassionate ones, who radiate love to extinguish all the ills of all beings in the miserable states of use, suffering grievous pains. Seeing this world afflicted, diseased, they gather the medicines of immortal knowledge and foster release with great compassion. This is the abode of those like master physicians. This is the abode of those like mariners who make a ship of good ways to save those fallen in the sea of death and massive sorrows, soothing troubled, helpless beings. This is the abode of those like giant birds who watch the abodes of all beings with love and compassion based on great vows and pull beings out of the sea of existence. This is the abode of the steadfast who remain for aeons to develop even one being. And as for one, do the same for all, as refugees for the world. Here abide the offspring of the Buddha, various, diverse. They carry out many instructive talks, and considering arts and sciences beneficial to the world, they dwell here in the abode of the wise. This is the abode of those whose minds are unhindered, who course in the unstructured reality realm, whose sphere is that of non-grasping, in knowledge of non-duality. This is the abode of the dispassionate, who realize phenomena are like space in essence, without any basis, quiescent, and live among them as in space. I bow in respect to the abode of the blameless ones in the realm of non-obstruction, and to the noble Maitreya, best of enlightening beings, unhindered in action, incomparably pure in mind, always aware. Then Sutana respectfully circumambulated the enlightening being Maitreya and said, "Please open the door of the tower and I will enter." Then Maitreya went up to the door of the tower, containing the adornments of Virochana, and with his right hand snapped his fingers. The door of the tower opened, and Maitreya bade Sutana to enter. Then Sutana, in greatest wonder, went into the tower. As soon as he entered, the door shut. He saw the tower immensely vast and wide, hundreds of thousands of leagues wide, as measureless as the sky, as vast as all of space, adorned with countless tributes, countless canopies, banners, pennants, jewels, garlands of pearls and gems, moons and half-moons, multicolored streamers, jewel nets, gold nets, strings of jewels, jewels on golden threads, sweetly ringing bells and nets of chimes, flowers showering, celestial garlands and streamers, censers giving off fragrant fumes, showers of gold dust, networks of upper chambers, round windows, arches, turrets, mirrors, jewel figurines, jewel chips, pillars, clouds of precious cloths, jewel trees, jewel railings, jeweled pathways, jeweled awnings, various arrays on the floor, chambers of jewels, jeweled promenades, rows of golden banana trees, statues made of all kinds of jewels, images of the Bodhisattvas, singing birds, jewel lotuses, lotus ponds, jewel stairways, the ground full of masses of various jewels, radiant gems, arrays of all kinds of jewels. Also, inside the great tower, he saw hundreds of thousands of other towers, similarly arrayed. He saw those towers as infinitely vast as space, evenly arrayed in all directions. Yet these towers were not mixed up with one another, being each mutually distinct, while appearing reflected in each and every object of all the other towers.
Refuges and precepts. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa Bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami, dhammang saranang gacchami, sanghang saranang gacchami, dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami, Tatyampi buddhang saranang gacchami, Tatyampi dhammang saranang gacchami, Tatyampi sangham saranang gacchami. Panatipata veramani sikkhapadam sammadhyami. Adinadana veramani sikkhapadam sammadhyami. Kamesu vichachara veramani sikkhapadam sammadhyami. Musavada veramani sikkhapadam sammadhyami. Suramerya Majjam Pamadhatana veramani sikkhapadam sammadhyami. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. With deeds of loving kindness, I purify my body. With open-handed generosity, I purify my body. With stillness, simplicity, and contentment, I purify my body. With truthful communication, I purify my speech. With mindfulness clear and radiant, I purify my mind. Vow 8, to follow the teachings. As I am carrying out enlightenment practice, may I recall my lives in all states.
May I recall my lives in all states.
In every lifetime, as I die and am reborn.
In every lifetime, as I die and am reborn.
May I always transcend the mundane.
May I always transcend the mundane.
By honor, service, and direction.
By honor, service, and direction.
By appreciation, seeking, and requesting teachings.
By appreciation, seeking, and requesting teachings.
Whatever good I have accumulated,
Whatever good I have accumulated,
I dedicate it all to enlightenment.
I dedicate it all to enlightenment.
Learning from all Buddhas.
Learning from all Buddhas.
Fulfilling the practice of good.
Fulfilling the practice of good.
I will practice pure conduct.
I will practice pure conduct.
Always free from defect.
Always free from defect.
I will expound the teaching.
I will expound the teaching.
In the languages of gods and dragons.
In the languages of gods and dragons.
In the languages of demons and humans.
In the languages of demons and humans.
In the languages of all living beings.
In the languages of all living beings.
I will traverse the paths of the world.
I will traverse the paths of the world.
Free from compulsion, affliction, and delusion.
Free from compulsion, affliction, and delusion.
Like a lotus unstained by water.
Like a lotus unstained by water.
Like the sun and moon unattached in the sky.
Like the sun and moon unattached in the sky.
Extinguishing all the miseries of bad states.
Extinguishing all the miseries of bad states.
And bringing all beings to happiness.
And bringing all ways to happiness.
I will act for the welfare of all beings,
I will act for the welfare of all beings,
in all lands everywhere.
in all lands everywhere.
By the power of knowledge all-sided,
By the power of knowledge all-sided,
by the power of practice with all virtues,
by the power of practice of all virtues,
by the power of universal love,
by the power of universal love,
by the power of goodness all pure,
by the power of goodness all pure,
by the power of knowledge unobstructed,
by the power of knowledge unobstructed,
gathering the power of enlightenment,
gathering the power of enlightenment,
clearing away the power of acts,
clearing away the power of acts,
destroying the power of afflictions,
destroying the power of afflictions,
vitiating the power of demons.
vitiating the power of demons.
May I fulfill all powers
May I fulfill all powers
of the practice of good,
of the practice of good,
purifying oceans of lands,
purifying oceans of lands,
liberating oceans of beings,
liberating oceans of beings,
observing oceans of truth,
observing oceans of truth,
plumbing oceans of knowledge,
plumbing oceans of knowledge,
perfecting oceans of practices,
perfecting oceans of practices,
fulfilling oceans of vows,
fulfilling oceans of vows,
serving oceans of Buddhas.
serving oceans of Buddhas.
May I practice untiring for oceans of aeons,
May I practice untiring for oceans of aeons,
the lofty vows of enlightenment practice,
the lofty vows of enlightenment practice,
of the Buddhas of past, present, and future.
of the Buddhas of past, present, and future.
May I fulfill completely,
May I fulfill completely,
practice what is good,
practice what is good,
and realize enlightenment.
and realize enlightenment.
May I carry out the vow of Manjushri
May I carry out the vow of Manjushri
to totally purify the practice of good,
to totally purify the practice of good,
tireless through all future ages.
tireless through all future ages.
May I fulfill all those tasks.
May I fulfill all those tasks,
As long as the earth exists,
as long as the earth exists,
as long as all beings exist,
as long as all beings exist,
as long as acts and afflictions exist,
as long as acts and afflictions exist,
so long will my vow remain.
so long will my vow remain.
Vow 9. To accommodate and benefit all living beings. Let me give the Buddhas of all worlds,
Let me give the Buddhas of all worlds,
in the 10 directions adorned with jewels.
in the 10 directions adorned with jewels.
Let me give celestials and humans supreme happiness,
Let me give celestials and humans supreme happiness,
for eons as many as atoms.
for eons as many as atoms.
Those who develop respect and devotion
Those who develop respect and devotion,
on hearing this supreme dedication,
on hearing the supreme dedication,
seeking supreme enlightenment,
seeking supreme
will
enlightenment,
be most blessed.
will be most blessed.
Vow 10. To transfer all merits and virtues to the benefit of all beings. The Buddha knows those who hold this vow to practice good.
Buddha knows those who hold his vow to practice good,
Who cause it to be told of and taught,
who cause it to be told of and taught,
The fruit of this is supreme enlightenment.
Fruit of this is supreme enlightenment.
Do not entertain any doubt.
Do not entertain any doubt.
As the hero Manjushri knows,
As the hero Manjushri knows,
so too does universal good.
so too does universal good.
As I learn from them,
As I learn from them,
I dedicate all this virtue.
I dedicate all this virtue.
By the supreme dedication praised by the Buddhas of all times,
Supreme dedication, praised by Buddhas of all times.
I dedicate all this virtue to the practice of highest good.
I dedicate all this virtue to the practice of highest good.
Acting in accord with the time,
Acting in accord with the time,
may I remove all obstruction.
may I remove all obstructions.
May all those vows be complete.
May all those vows be complete.
Having fulfilled them,
Having fulfilled them,
I will work for the weal of all beings in the world.
I will work for the weal of all beings in the world.
I will work for the weal of beings everywhere,
I will work for the weal of beings everywhere.
by the power of the Buddha.
By the power of the Buddha.
By whatever virtue I accumulate,
By whatever virtue I accumulate,
having invoked with the vow to practice good,
having invoked the vow to practice good.
may the pure aspiration of the world be at once fulfilled.
May the pure aspiration of the world be at once fulfilled.
By the endless surpassing blessings
By the endless surpassing blessings
realized from dedication to the practice of good,
realized from dedication to the practice of good.
may worldlings submerged
May the worldlings submerged
in the torrent of passion
in the torrent of passion
go to the higher realm
go to the higher realm
of infinite light.
of infinite light.